The night is still. The world outside hums softly with the sound of sleep. And somewhere in the vastness beyond, the stars keep their quiet watch, patient, eternal, unchanged. But what if history isn't a straight line? What if it's a circle, one that resets itself again and again? Each time, life rises, reaches toward the stars, and then vanishes, leaving behind only silence. When we look at the story of Earth, we see our own reflection written across its fragile surface, a thin layer of time, resting on top of billions of forgotten years. Every mountain, every fossil, every grain of sand beneath our feet carries the memory of worlds that once were. And yet, most of that memory is gone, erased, rewritten. Imagine time not as a river flowing endlessly forward, but as a tide that retreats and returns, carrying with it the fragments of forgotten civilizations, echoes of minds that may have dreamed, built, and vanished long before us. We've learned to think of ourselves as the first to ask questions, the first to reach beyond the sky. But what if we are not? What if others have walked this path before, long before the first humans stood upright, even before the dinosaurs ruled the earth? Our history, as we know it, stretches back only a few thousand years. But the earth itself is over 4.5 billion years old. That's enough time for countless rises and falls, for entire civilizations to bloom, burn, and be buried beneath layers of stone dot in the cosmic calendar. If the age of the earth were a single year, human civilization would appear only in the last few seconds of December 31st. Everything we know, every city, every language, every story, would be nothing more than a final flicker before midnight. It's humbling to think that our presence is so brief, and yet it's also haunting, because if we've only just arrived, who or what may have come before us? Could the world have once been home to beings who understood nature in ways we've forgotten? Could they have built wonders that were swallowed by oceans, crushed by continents, or melted into magma when the earth reset itself once again? The evidence, if it ever existed, might be gone, erased by the slow churn of time. But the idea lingers, a whisper in the dark. Perhaps every era believes it is the first, unaware of the echoes beneath its feet. As you listen, let the thought drift through you like a dream. Maybe history has not been written once, but countless times. And maybe, somewhere in the silence of deep time, the earth remembers. Pause, soft ambient hum. What if our world is just one page in an endless book, rewritten after every age fades away? The earth is a master of forgetting. It reshapes itself constantly, turning mountains into dust, oceans into stone, and continents into drifting fragments of a memory it no longer keeps. Every raindrop, every tremor, every gust of wind plays a quiet role in erasing the stories once etched upon its surface. If you could stand still long enough, for 1,000,000 years, perhaps you would see it happen. Rivers carving valleys, volcanoes swallowing cities, glaciers grinding history into powder. In that endless transformation, time does not preserve, it consumes. Geologists often say the planet is like a book that's been rewritten again and again. Each page tells a story, but the older ones have been torn out, burned, or overwritten by new ink. When we search for our past, we're really just reading the final chapters, the ones that managed to survive the fire. The earth forgets through motion. Tectonic plates shift and collide, dragging the crust deep into the mantle where rock melts and reforms, erasing everything that once lay upon it. Mountains rise and crumble back into the sea. The ocean floor, heavy with sediment, vanishes into subduction zones, its history folded beneath layers of heat and pressure. Even the atmosphere participates in this quiet destruction. Rain dissolves stone, wind carries dust across continents. The sun bleaches and burns. What remains of ancient civilizations, if any existed, before us, might now rest as nothing more than minerals mixed into the bones of younger worlds. Our human timeline feels vast, stretching back tens of thousands of years, but in geological terms, it's a heartbeat, a brief shimmer of light between eons of darkness. The layers beneath us are so deep that they compress entire ages into inches. And between those layers, countless years simply vanish. We search for fossils, ruins, and remnants, But we find so little because the earth does not keep archives, it keeps rhythms. The cycles of destruction and rebirth are endless, each one sweeping away the traces of what came before. And yet, in that silence, there are whispers, microscopic clues, a spike of carbon here, an unusual isotope there, faint signals that something once happened, something extraordinary. Perhaps that time has almost completely devoured the planet remembers in fragments, a ripple frozen in sandstone, a trace of metal in ancient clay, a pattern no one can fully explain. These are the Earth's fading memories, scattered, incomplete, and easily overlooked. If everything resets, then what could possibly survive? What evidence could endure the crush of continents, the boiling of magma, the endless reign of time? Perhaps only one thing, the question itself. And so we keep asking, searching, and wondering, sifting through the ashes of forgotten worlds for the faintest sign that we were not the first to dream. Every so often, the earth pauses and begins again, not by choice, but by design, an ancient rhythm written into its very bones. Life blooms, thrives, and reaches toward the light, only to be silenced in a moment. The planet resets itself through fire, ice, and impact. In these cataclysms, everything is erased, not gently, but completely. Scientists call them mass extinctions. Nature calls them renewals. There have been at least 5 great catastrophes that wiped away nearly all life on Earth. The Permian extinction, 250 million years ago, turned the planet into a graveyard. 90% of species vanished, forests turned to deserts, oceans became poison. For millions of years, the world was still. And then, slowly, life began again, stranger, stronger, different. The dinosaurs rose next. For over 160 million years, they ruled the Earth, until one day, the sky fell. A 6-mile-wide asteroid struck the Yucatan Peninsula, releasing energy equal to billions of nuclear bombs. Darkness covered the world. The age of giants ended, and the age of mammals began. We call these extinctions, but maybe that's not the right word. Maybe they're resets. The planet's way of clearing the slate when the story grows too dense, too loud, too heavy. The Younger Dryas event, just 12,000 years ago, might have been another such moment. Something the comet, perhaps, struck or exploded in the atmosphere, plunging Earth back into an ice age. The global climate shifted overnight. Civilizations that might have been budding along, ancient rivers could have vanished without leaving a single trace. Each catastrophe is both an ending and a beginning. Destruction gives way to renewal, a painful but necessary rebirth. Imagine the earth breathing, inhale, creation. Exhale, destruction. And then silence. A continents drift, oceans rise, the air thickens with dust and ash, and somewhere, amid the chaos, the seeds of a new world take root. Perhaps destruction isn't the end at all. Perhaps it's the heartbeat of life itself, a cosmic rhythm, repeating across eons. Maybe the earth forgets not because it is careless, but because forgetting is how it heals. The slate must be wiped clean for something new to emerge, and so the cycle continues. Life, death, renewal, creation, collapse, rebirth. Every age believes itself to be the first, unaware that it may simply be the latest verse in an ancient, repeating song. The oceans rise, the continents rearrange, and a new story begins, written on the ashes of the old. Imagine a library so ancient that most of its books have turned to dust. The shelves remain, fragments of stone and mineral, but the words, the sentences, the stories they once held have long since vanished. This is what Earth's history looks like. A library where 9 out of every 10 pages are missing. Every fossil we've ever found, every rock layer we've ever studied, is a single scrap of text torn from a book billions of years old. We read what's left and tried to imagine what was once written, but the missing pages are infinite. Between those lost pages could lie entire worlds we will never know. Geologists call it the rock record, but it is less a record and more a whisper. Layers of stone do not form continuously. They are broken by erosion, buried by oceans, folded and shattered by tectonic drift. Whole epochs disappear in those breaks. in the time it takes for a mountain to rise and fall. Civilizations, if they ever existed, could be born and buried 1,000 times. We think of the fossil record as a solid foundation, but in truth, it's a patchwork quilt full of holes. Most of Earth's living things leave no fossil at all. Bones dissolve, shells crumble, forests turn to dust. Even under perfect conditions, only a tiny fraction of life ever fossilizes. And of those fossils, only a fraction are ever found. So when we say there was no civilization before us, what we really mean is we haven't found evidence yet. But in a record this fragile, absence does not always mean non-existence. There's a hypothesis, rarely spoken outside of scientific curiosity, that asks a simple question. If an industrial civilization existed millions of years ago, would we even know? Over time, cities would crumble, metal would corrode, and glass would return to sand. Within 10,000 years, nature would erase nearly every sign of our world. In a million years, only the faintest geochemical traces, a shift in carbon ratios, a spike in artificial compounds might remain. After 100 million years, even those would blur into the natural background. It's humbling to realize that the story of Earth is not written for permanence. It's a draft that keeps rewriting itself. Perhaps there were other drafts, other experiments with intelligence, long before us, that vanished between the layers of stone. We cannot read those missing chapters, but we can feel their weight in the silence between pages. The Earth remembers not in words or monuments, but in echoes, in magnetic fields, in isotopic fingerprints, in the slow drift of continents that carry the ghosts of worlds long gone. We like to believe we know our past, but what if what we call history is only the latest footnote in a far older story, one whose earlier volumes have been completely erased? If there were others before us, their legacy may not be statues or ruins, but the quiet, invisible fingerprints written deep within the bones of the planet itself. If we cannot find ruins or tools, then what could possibly remain of a civilization erased by time? The answer may not lie in the visible world at all, but in chemistry, in the planet's own memory written into stone. Every layer of rock is a time capsule. Each grain of sand, each trace of carbon, each trapped bubble of gas holds whispers from a forgotten world. To scientists, these are not lifeless minerals. They are storytellers. They carry evidence of oceans that once covered continents, forests that rose and fell, atmospheres that thickened and thinned. And sometimes, they contain anomalies, subtle patterns that do not fit what nature alone would create. If an advanced civilization had existed millions or even hundreds of millions of years ago, its traces would not look like skyscrapers or machines. They would look like tiny shifts, fingerprints buried in the chemistry of the planet itself. Consider this. Modern civilization is already leaving such fingerprints. The rapid burning of fossil fuels alters the balance of carbon isotopes in the air and in the sea. Plastics, metals, and synthetic compounds are spreading through soil and sediment. Future geologists, perhaps millions of years from now, would read our era as a thin, strange layer of chemistry, unlike any before or after it. So, if we can mark the planet in a few centuries, could someone else have done the same eons ago? To search for that possibility, scientists study isotopes, subtle variations of atoms that act like time-stamped signatures. They look for unusual spikes in carbon, oxygen, or nitrogen ratios, for sudden enrichments in rare metals like iridium or platinum, for layers that show rapid, unexplained warming or acidification normally. Such patterns are blamed on volcanoes, asteroid impacts, or climate shifts, all perfectly natural causes. But some researchers have wondered, if we ever found a chemical pattern that looked too artificial, would we even recognize it as such? Or would we, out of habit, interpret it as another quirk of geology? It's a haunting thought, that evidence of intelligence might lie in plain sight, disguised as the ordinary language of stone. The rocks remember everything, but they do not tell us what it means. They record without judgment, a billion years of rain, fire, decay, and renewal. Somewhere in those archives could be a signature we've already seen, already measured, but never truly understood. Maybe it's buried deep beneath the ocean floor, where ancient sediments lie untouched. Maybe it's locked in mountain cores and crystals older than any known fossil. Maybe it's nowhere at all, or maybe it's everywhere, scattered too thin to see. Science demands skepticism, and rightly so. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. Yet even the skeptics agree. The record of Earth is incomplete, fragmented, and easily misread. So the search continues, not for cities or monuments, but for whispers. In the chemistry of the rocks, in the breath of ancient air trapped in ice, in the patterns too quiet for human history to remember. If an ancient civilization did exist, its ruins might not be found above ground, but within it. Every so often, something surfaces from the depths of the earth that doesn't seem to belong. A riddle carved into stone, a shape, a mark, a fragment that whispers, "I shouldn't be here." These are what people call anomalies. Traces that seem to defy the known story of time. Some are simple curiosities, metallic spheres found in ancient rock formations, fossilized impressions that resemble footprints where no human should have walked, or strange, geometric patterns embedded in layers far older than humanity itself. Most of these mysteries, upon closer inspection, turn out to have natural explanations, the beautiful chaos of geology pretending to be design. Throughout history, there have been discoveries that linger in uncertainty, not proven, not debunked, simply unresolved. Some objects appear to be shaped by human hands, but are found in strata millions of years too old for humans to exist. Others, like out-of-place fossils, seem to capture impressions that don't match any known species. Often, scientists reclassify them as misunderstood natural phenomena, but sometimes, the questions remain open. It's easy, of course, to let imagination take over where data ends. Humans have always filled gaps in knowledge with stories. When we find something strange, we want it to mean something. We crave connection, pattern, purpose. Our minds turn fragments into narratives, a shadow into a figure, a coincidence into a clue. But anomalies do serve a purpose, even when they're misunderstood. They remind us that the past is not as solid as it seems. They challenge the illusion that science has already written every page of Earth's story. In truth, that story is still being drafted, revised each time we dig a little deeper. Consider this: if you were to scatter the remnants of modern civilization, bits of plastic, metal, and glass, across deep geological time, they would appear as anomalies too. Future beings might puzzle over artificial alloys embedded in sandstone, or question how certain chemical combinations ever appeared. To them, we would be the out-of-place ones. And so, anomalies are more than curiosities. They are mirrors. They reflect our hunger to understand, and our limitations in doing so. Perhaps the lesson is not that anomalies prove anything extraordinary, but that they reveal how much mystery remains hidden beneath our confidence. Nature is a patient sculptor. It crafts patterns that seem purposeful but are born from chaos. It hides stories in the folds of stone, knowing we'll one day try to read them and wonder. The extraordinary, it seems, often wears the mask of the ordinary. And sometimes, what looks like coincidence may simply be the universe reminding us that we don't know as much as we think we do. So we listen, we look closer, we dig deeper. Not to prove myths, but to remain open to the possibility that reality still holds secrets vast enough to humble us. The earth has died many times, not in myth, but in fact. Entire ecosystems have vanished, continents have shifted, and oceans have boiled or frozen solid. Each time, life has been wiped clean, only to rise again, different and unrecognizable. Scientists call these events mass extinctions. Moments when life nearly ended. The Permian extinction, for example, erased over 90% of all species. Imagine that, nearly everything alive, gone. The planet turned into a graveyard of ash and silence. And yet, from that silence, something new always emerges. If you could watch Earth's history on fast forward, you'd see a rhythm: creation, destruction, renewal. Civilizations may not have been the only things to rise and fall. The planet itself follows this pulse, as if it's breathing through eons. Each extinction acts like a reset, clearing the slate, reshaping the rules. And what comes next is often more complex, more intelligent, more adaptive. It's as if evolution learns from its own mistakes. That pattern raises a haunting question. What if intelligence isn't rare at all? What if it has emerged before, again and again, only to be erased, buried beneath cataclysms so total that even memory turns to dust? We assume that humanity is the first to ask questions, to build, to imagine. But in the aftermath of every reset, how much of what once was could possibly survive? Stone monuments crumble, metal corrodes, cities become dust. After a few million years, even the most advanced civilization could vanish without a trace. In a way, Earth itself might be like a library where each age burns the book before the next begins, leaving only ashes for us to interpret. When we find strange anomalies or impossible patterns, perhaps they are not proof, but whispers, reminders that the world has restarted before and may do so again. And if that's true, then our civilization is not an exception, just another chapter, one that will someday be buried too. The planet will move on, reshaping itself as it always has. The oceans will return to claim the land, mountains will rise, and all that remains of us will be stories written in stone that no one will read. But maybe that's not tragic. Maybe it's beautiful, because every reset gives birth to something new, a chance for the universe to begin again, and for life to rediscover wonder. We are part of that rhythm, a single breath in the vast exhale of time. Far beneath the frozen layers of Antarctica, there are whispers of a world forgotten. Satellite scans have revealed mountain ranges, riverbeds, and vast plateaus buried under miles of ice. A hidden continent frozen in silence for millions of years. But what if it wasn't always this way? What if Antarctica, long before the ice claimed it, was once alive, warm, green, and possibly home to something extraordinary? Scientists know that Antarctica wasn't always a frozen wasteland. Fossilized forests, pollen grains, and even dinosaur bones have been discovered there. It was once covered in lush vegetation, teeming with life. But those discoveries hint at something deeper, a question that science alone hesitates to ask. Could something more advanced have existed there before the world reset once again? Consider this. Entire civilizations could have risen and fallen before the first human ever walked the earth. If such worlds existed millions of years ago, time and ice would have erased every trace. The weight of glaciers, the grinding of tectonic plates, all would have swallowed the evidence whole. And yet, sometimes, the earth gives us clues, brief glimpses through the frost. In 2016, scientists found what appeared to be geometric shapes beneath the Antarctic ice using radar imaging. The formations looked too perfect, too structured, almost architectural. Officially, they were dismissed as natural formations, but to some researchers, they hinted at something more, something built. If even a fragment of an ancient civilization lies trapped beneath those icy layers, it would change everything we know about history. It would mean that humanity is not the first to rise, but perhaps just the latest to awaken after a long planetary sleep. Every era buries its own secrets. The ice is not just frozen water, it is memory. Memory of worlds before ours, of beings who might have looked at the stars and wondered, as we do now, whether they were alone. As the planet warms and glaciers melt, that memory begins to stir. Perhaps, somewhere beneath the Antarctic sheets, the past waits, patient and preserved, for the moment when it will be seen again. And when that happens, when the ice gives up its secrets, we may have to face an uncomfortable truth. We are living in someone else's future. Across the world, separated by oceans and time, humanity tells the same story. A story of worlds that rose, fell, and vanished beneath the waves. From the lost island of Atlantis to Kumari Kandam in the Indian Ocean. From Shambhala in the Himalayas to Zep Tepe, the first time of ancient Egypt, the echoes are strangely familiar. They speak of golden ages, advanced knowledge, and catastrophic ends. Civilizations blessed with wisdom and technology, undone not by ignorance but by hubris, by the turning of the earth itself. What if these myths are not mere imagination, but fractured memories, whispers passed down through the survivors of earlier resets? Plato wrote that Atlantis fell in a single day and night of misfortune. Hindu texts describe cyclical ages, yugas, where civilizations rise to greatness, only to be swept away and reborn. The Maya spoke of previous worlds destroyed by flood and fire. Even the Bible remembers a deluge that wiped away all but a chosen few. How could cultures so distant, so isolated by geography, tell the same story, unless they were remembering something real? Perhaps when a civilization perishes, the survivors carry not artifacts, but stories. Stories become myth, myth becomes legend, and legend becomes religion. Over time, truth dissolves into metaphor, yet something remains. A code, a memory, a warning. Consider the Göbekli Tepe site in modern-day Turkey, built over 11,000 years ago, before agriculture, before cities, before history as we define it began. Massive stone pillars carved with animals and celestial symbols stand in circles, aligned with stars. It appears out of nowhere, as if knowledge had survived from a forgotten world and found new hands to build again. Myths. 2. Maybe such monuments, invisible ones, built in the mind instead of stone. So, when ancient people spoke of gods descending from the heavens, or of knowledge gifted by beings from before the flood, maybe they weren't speaking of gods at all, but of those who came before them. Each story, each ruin, each whisper from the past feels like a fragment of a greater memory, one that humanity has been trying to remember ever since the last great silence. Perhaps that's what mythology truly is, not fantasy, but the Earth's subconscious, dreaming of its own forgotten lives. If we trust only what we can see, touch, and measure, then the story of humanity is clear. A few thousand years of civilization, a blink in geological time. But beneath that neat timeline, there are riddles that refuse to stay buried. Objects, patterns, and fossils that seem too strange, too old, or too advanced to fit the accepted script. Archaeologists call them anomalies. Scientists catalog them cautiously. Others call them proof. But whatever name we give, they whisper the same unsettling thought. Maybe our history isn't the first draft, just the latest dot in the coal mines of Pennsylvania. Miners once unearthed what appeared to be a metallic sphere embedded in 300-million-year-old rock. In South Africa, small perfectly round spheres, grooved, polished, were found in ancient mineral deposits dated billions of years old. Scientists debate their origins, often citing natural processes. Yet the precision of their form raises eyebrows and questions that science prefers to postpone. Then there are the maps, the Piri-Reis map, drawn in 1513, depicting the coastline of Antarctica centuries before it was officially discovered. The details match what lies beneath the ice, revealed only by modern radar. How could an early cartographer have known a landscape hidden for thousands of years? Some anomalies live not in stone, but in math. The Great Pyramid of Giza encodes the number of pi, the length of the solar year, and the curvature of the Earth, facts supposedly unknown to its builders. Even if coincidence explains some of it, the precision remains uncanny, as though the builders were remembering knowledge, not discovering it. And what of the ancient sites that appear too advanced for their time? Pumapunku in Bolivia, where granite blocks fit together like precision machine parts. Or Baalbek in Lebanon, whose foundation stones weigh hundreds of tons. Modern cranes struggle to lift them. Ancient humans, we are told, did it with ropes and patience. Skeptics rightly caution, mystery is not proof, but it's also not nothing. Science demands evidence, yet evidence depends on survival. And the Earth, as we've seen, is not a careful archivist. It recycles its past without mercy. So, what if the evidence that shouldn't exist is not anomalous at all, but the faint residue of an earlier chapter, too old to fit our narrative? Maybe the reason we find only fragments is because the rest has already been erased, burned, buried, or folded back into the crust of time. The question then becomes not whether another civilization existed, but how much of it could possibly remain. Long before archaeology tried to explain the past with tools and data, stories tried to remember it. Myths, told by firelight, whispered through generations, may be the world's oldest form of memory. And though wrapped in symbolism, many share an eerily similar message. Something great once existed, and it was lost across continents and cultures. From the icy tundra of the north to the islands of the Pacific, tales echo the same refrain of golden ages, floods, and civilizations swallowed by time. Asterisk in Sumerian texts. The gods once ruled among men in cities older than the flood. In Egyptian lore, the Zep Tepi, the first time, describes an age when beings of knowledge descended and built wonders now lost. The Hindu epics speak of cities in the sky and wars fought with weapons that burned brighter than the sun. The Maya, the Inca, the Aboriginal Dreamtime, and even Norse legends all speak of cycles, of worlds destroyed and born again. What are we to make of this chorus of remembrance? Are myths merely imagination, or fractured memories of something real, seen long ago by ancestors we no longer recognize? Modern science often separates myth from history, but in some cases, mythology has guided discovery. The lost city of Troy was once considered fiction, until Heinrich Schliemann, following clues from Homer's Iliad, unearthed it. The same could be true of other ancient tales. If we learn to listen differently, consider Atlantis, described by Plato as a mighty empire destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune. Scholars debate whether it's allegory or memory, yet Plato claimed it came from even older Egyptian records, stories of a civilization that existed 9,000 years before his time. Then there is the Mahabharata's description of weapons that shone like the sun and reduced cities to ashes. The imagery mirrors nuclear devastation, though written thousands of years before atomic science. Coincidence, perhaps, but coincidence repeated across civilizations begins to look like pattern. Maybe myths are not fantasies, but encoded survival, preserved through metaphor. When the mind cannot grasp cataclysm, it turns to story. When history drowns, memory learns to swim through words. And if all myths point backward, to something greater, something lost, then perhaps they are the Earth's way of remembering through us. After all, every civilization believes itself to be the first. But what if we're only the latest echo in a lineage too vast to trace? The stones do not speak, but the stories do, and together they whisper, "We have been here before." There is a quiet rhythm beneath all of Earth's chaos, a cycle of creation and erasure that has shaped life for billions of years. To understand it is to confront an uncomfortable truth. The world has ended many times before, and it will end again. Science calls them mass extinctions, moments when nearly all life vanishes in the blink of geological time. There have been at least 5. Each time, the story resets, forests regrow, oceans refill, and new species emerge as if the Earth itself begins to dream anew. The first reset, over 440 million years ago, froze the planet into silence. The second boiled it with volcanic fire. The third, the Permian extinction, erased more than 90% of all species. Imagine that, nearly everything gone, from the depths of the sea to the skies above. The fourth reset cleared the path for dinosaurs, and the fifth, sparked by an asteroid, ended their reign. Each time, destruction was followed by renewal, and each time, something more complex rose from the ashes. It's as if Earth has a hidden instinct to forget, and then to begin again. But what if these resets didn't just wipe out species? What if they erased civilizations? We assume that intelligence is rare, that humans are unique in thought and creation. But what if the world has birthed intelligence more than once? Perhaps the ocean once held thinkers with no bones to fossilize. Perhaps continents long gone bore cities built of materials that time could not preserve. When the planet resets, memory itself burns. Mountains rise where oceans once lay. Continents drift apart. Stone turns to sand, and sand to dust. What remains of our own civilization if the reset came tomorrow? In a million years, would anyone know we existed? Or would our cities simply be veins of metal deep in the rock? We measure time by human lifespans, but the Earth measures it in eternities. From its perspective, even the fall of empires happens in a single heartbeat. Yet there's beauty in this cycle. The same forces that erase life also make it possible. Volcanoes destroy, but their ash feeds new forests. Ice scours the land, but when it melts, rivers bloom again. Every end carries within it the seed of another beginning. So perhaps history hasn't been written once, but many times, in layers of fire, water, and stone. Each reset is not punishment, but renewal. Each extinction a prelude to creation. And if the pattern holds, then maybe we too are part of that rhythm, destined to vanish, so that something new can rise where we once stood. The world forgets, yes, but it also remembers, through the lives it remakes, the stories it retells, and the silence that follows every storm. If the earth could speak, what would it say? Perhaps nothing at all, only a low hum beneath our feet, the sound of tectonic plates shifting, mountains forming, and continents breathing. For while the planet forgets in human terms, it remembers in its own language pressure, heat, and time. Every grain of sand, every fold of stone, every shimmer in a crystal vein is a sentence written in a code of ages. Geologists call it stratigraphy, layers of rock that hold the memory of what once was. But beyond science, it is something more poetic, the diary of a living world. Some memories are carved deep, like scars. The crater in Yucatan tells the story of the asteroid that ended the age of dinosaurs. In Greenland's ice cores, bubbles of air from hundreds of thousands of years ago whisper of climates long past. In ocean sediments, we find traces of ancient blooms, of life that rose and fell before humans ever dreamed of history. It is easy to forget that the ground beneath us was once molten, then ocean, then forest, then desert. The planet's memory is not linear. It folds upon itself, rewriting, blending, transforming. Even the stones that built our cities were once something else, perhaps coral reefs, or volcanic glass, or the skeletons of creatures that floated in primeval seas. Yet not all memories endure. Some are erased by time's relentless editing. Earth's crust recycles itself through plate tectonics, swallowing entire continents and their stories. The deeper the layer, the older the silence. Somewhere, far below, are the remains of worlds we'll never know, their secrets sealed forever beneath miles of rock. And still, hints remain. Unexplained isotopic spikes, traces of carbon anomalies, patterns in the geological record that suggest sudden, mysterious changes. Scientists interpret them through models and data. But what if they are the faint echoes of something else, a forgotten moment when life, intelligence, or even civilization left a fleeting mark before being swallowed by time? Perhaps the planet remembers not in images, but in rhythms. The way the sea returns to shore, the way forests regrow after fire, the way life insists on beginning again. We, too, are part of that pattern, a thought the earth is thinking, briefly, before it moves on to another. One day, our monuments will crumble, our cities will drown or burn or sink, but maybe, in some distant future, the rocks that form from our ruins will carry a whisper, a thin, quiet line in the planet's memory that says, they were here, and maybe, just maybe, someone, or something, will one day read that line, and wonder who we were. When we look into deep time, we are not only peering backward, we are looking into a mirror. The reflections that stare back are not of faces or cities, but of patterns, emergence, collapse, renewal. Every age thinks itself unique, but time reveals that the story of life has been told again and again in infinite variations. Mountains rise and crumble, oceans vanish, then return. Species bloom like brief sparks in the dark, then fade. Civilizations, whether biological, industrial, or something stranger, are but temporary arrangements of matter, aware of themselves for a heartbeat before dissolving into silence. And yet, in that heartbeat lies everything: love, art, curiosity, memory, the fleeting awareness that the cosmos is vast and we are small, but alive within it. That is the miracle of consciousness, a flame kindled for a moment in the long night of eternity. Deep time humbles us. It strips away the illusion of permanence. It reminds us that even the stars have lifespans, and that Earth itself is only a chapter in a greater cosmic story. But humility need not mean despair. To exist at all, to think, to feel, To wonder is to participate in something far larger than ourselves. Perhaps that is the hidden lesson of deep time, that meaning does not come from duration, but from awareness. That even if our civilization becomes another forgotten layer in the planet's crust, the experience of being, of witnessing, of imagining, was itself the purpose. When we gaze into the mirror of deep time, we see not just the past that shaped us, but the future that will forget us. We see cycles without beginning or end. We see life's determination to keep dreaming, no matter how many times the page is turned. And maybe that is enough, to know that we are part of the same rhythm that has always been, and will always be. There comes a moment, after every story, when the echoes fade, the seas grow calm, the winds settle, and the world exhales. That silence, the space between endings and beginnings, is where history sleeps. Maybe history has not been written just once, but countless times. Maybe each age believes itself to be the first and the last, unaware of the faint imprints buried beneath its feet. Civilizations may rise like tides, only to retreat again into the ocean of deep time, leaving behind nothing but whispers and stone. Imagine the earth at night, long after we are gone. The cities are dust, the satellites have fallen, the last traces of light have faded from the sky. Yet beneath the quiet soil, the planet remembers, not in words, but in chemistry, in the silent language of minerals and isotopes. The earth has always remembered, even as it forgets, and as new continents form, as oceans shift and climates renew. Perhaps another intelligence will awaken one day, unaware of us, just as we are unaware of what came before. They too will search the ground, find fragments, and wonder, were there others? But maybe the question is not who came before or who comes after. Maybe the true beauty lies in the rhythm itself, in the rise and fall, in the endless rewriting of life's story. The universe does not keep archives. It keeps rhythms. It breathes through creation and erasure, through memory and forgetting. Close your eyes. Listen to that rhythm, the quiet heartbeat of a planet older than imagination, the same rhythm that pulsed beneath the feet of creatures long vanished, and that will one day echo beneath worlds yet unborn. Everything changes, everything ends, and yet everything begins again. So rest now, in the silence between eras. Let the earth breathe as it always has and always will, between each forgotten world.